A lot. I mean, there's obviously like one key thing which I don't really want to spoil for anyone who was not aware of it. There was, one key bit of information about how the boys were extracted from the cave and how the rescue took place that was sort of kept out of the public eye for a reason. And for me, the biggest shock reading the script about what I didn't know was that this particular aspect that really kind of blew my mind when I found out how it was possible to get these 12 boys and their coach out of a 2.5 kilometre series of underwater caves,
And for me, it was, I think I'd seen so much on the news when it happened. And when I came on board with the film, we were so spoilt with the amount of documentaries and interviews and things we were sent. But what was strange about it, I think, was watching all of the documentaries and the interviews. I still felt a bit of distance, that I didn't know the people too much. It's still in an interview setting, what happened, and then reflecting. And what was so exciting about being part of this film, and I'm so excited for people to see it, because I think Ron and everyone involved has done such an amazing job of getting the heartbeat of every person involved, from the mothers of the children to the coach that looked after them, to the divers, to the guys pumping the water from the top of the mountain. Ron is so amazing at just keeping those people real. And watching it for the first time for me last night, I really felt like I got to know those people involved, and they became very human for me. So that's what I've taken away from it mostly, really.
I was very surprised when I read the script. I knew the headlines, I knew the outcome, but I immediately recognized that there was just so much drama and sort of fascinating insights, cultural, procedural, and all of this, I think, lent itself to a scripted adaptation of the events.
Well, I think that was also part of the confidence and excitement I had. I always wanted to work with Ron, but knowing that he was taking care of this story, and when you look at Backdraft in Apollo 13, his ability to tell the stories of professional people getting together for an act of heroism to solve impossible problems, it seems like one of his real particular wheelhouses, and I think he's really proven it again with this film in handling so many stories and really paying tribute to what was a global effort rather than just, guys in wetsuits pulling people out of a cave.
Yeah, and I think what he seems to do amazingly is a lot of directors, and it can be wonderful depending on what tone the film is, but go, here's this thing that I've made. With Ron, there seems to be this energy of, come look at this thing that I've discovered, and that's what it felt like when we were researching the film. He'd sort of go, guys, I just found this new thing, come and let's share it with the world, instead of trying to create this sort of perfect thing. And watching it yesterday was just that for 2.5 hours,
Yeah, I think I learned that lesson, sort of initially on Apollo 13, and that carried on through Rush and even A Beautiful Mind, about the world of math and science. And so I've recognized that audiences really respond to that. In this case, it's so much about the problem solving and the steps, but also the risks that are taken. Not just physical risks, but also emotional and psychological. And it's, I wanted to be as specific about that, not only in the dive, in those caves, but also on the base camp and, in the back rooms as these very difficult, very risky decisions were being made. There was a lot of courage being shown, a lot of different kinds of courage on display, and I thought audiences could really appreciate that and understand the story even more, if they did see it played out.
9 days ago, 12 boys and their coach are trapped in the flooded caves.
Hello?
Hey, they're here.
How many of you?
13.
13?
They're all alive.
Can we go out now?
Yeah, I was on the way to becoming a dad when we were shooting the film. In fact, my babies, twins, were born a week before I finished shooting the film. They kicked and screamed and came early. And I don't know whether it was that, but the idea of the responsibility of the lives of children, even if they're not your own, and making a decision that perfectly creates a conundrum about your career and your ethos versus this opportunity you have to perhaps save these kids' lives, but in the process of doing it, you may do the opposite. And I felt like for Harry, he's such a sensitive human being that the weight of the world's hopes and expectations were then placed on his shoulders, that he had to put himself aside and say, I'm willing to do this knowing they're probably all going to perish anyway. But if I do it, I could feel the responsibility that I murdered the children. And I get emotional thinking about it, but I can't imagine what that would have felt like for him. And I'm so happy that the result was positive, because I think he feels things so deeply and cares so much about things that I wonder how that would have impacted the rest of his life, you know.
And the leadership. It's not just a cultural thing of the spirit. It's also this leadership on a political level, going full on, doing everything they could do, immediately responding, not shirking any responsibility whatsoever, but also opening up their borders and their minds to other possibilities. This shows another kind of courage and great leadership. So there's a great example being set there. Yeah, this is up there. It's weightlessness in Apollo was quite a challenge. The fires in Backdraft, the racing in Rush, the land races in Far and Away. Done a lot of big, complicated scenes, and you always have to approach it in the same way, keeping safety in mind, but also being ambitious about where you can get those cameras and how you can convey to audiences what it felt like. In this case, I would say it was much harder than I expected it to be. I'd done a lot of underwater work, but never in caves. And when you start putting human beings in these tight spaces, even in a tank, even sets that have been built, there's an element of risk and also just a degree of difficulty in terms of lighting it, shooting it. Sayampu Muktipram did such a great job of it, but it took a lot of experimentation, a lot of testing. And ultimately, again, I can't say enough about the actors taking on the responsibility of being able to do all of the diving themselves. It just allowed, we never had to cheat. We never had to hide a camera, hide an actor, do any of those kinds of things. We could just really show it, almost like you were doing a documentary. And it was powerful in terms of the, what it achieves for the audience in terms of really putting them there alongside those divers.
But I think this movie shows that at our core as a species on the planet, as the human species, we are filled with an empathetic spirit at the best of times and at the worst of times. And that I think it's really good to remind ourselves that, as much as we live our lives selfishly for the most part, when the right situation happens, the most extraordinary things come out of us. And we are able to join together and solve problems together, despite whether we know the people we're helping or despite we know the people that we're working shoulder to shoulder with to cooperate. And I think it's such a special reminder of who we can be.